that's physiologically impossible. So could you please come back here and we'll get it checked and we'll see what your cholesterol really is. And then we'll start your medication. She hung up the phone. She said, damn, cholesterol dropped 80 points. My mother called me up and she said, Neal, why didn't you tell me about this before? So, anyhow, my mom's got religion. She said, okay, this vegan diet, this saves you from needing medication. This is amazing. This controls your cholesterol.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back today with another fantastic episode with somebody I'm really excited to talk with because he's going to tell us about the benefits of plant-based diets, as well as some other fascinating things. We have Dr. Neal Barnard MD. How are you doing today, doctor?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. We just found out that we're both musically inclined.
As a matter of fact, I've been a musician since before I was a doctor. We carry these things with us, and hopefully one can enrich the other.
Right. Well, when you come home from a long day of seeing people kind of shoot themselves in the foot, it's good to relax and do stuff like that. You probably see a lot of that as far as people want to live with the American diet and stuff. Do you get down and out seeing people eating so poorly?
I don't get down and out. But people do eat poorly. I mean, there's no question about that. I grew up in North Dakota, and I don't know if you've ever been to Fargo or maybe seen the movie, sure. But that's where I grew up, and I have to say that it took some time before science was able to show that the foods that we eat are actually the biggest driver of the things that lead people to come into the clinic. I'm talking about weight problems, or heart problems, or diabetes, or high blood pressure, high cholesterol level. And the beauty of this is that if you flip it around, that means that diet is also the solution. So I was not terribly cognizant of that when I started my medical training. We have done a lot of research and we've learned a lot. And now we're at the point of putting that to work. And so people who have been troubled with problems like excess weight or diabetes or medications they'd rather not be taking, we now have solutions that are really strong, easy to access, and more or less free.
Yeah. That's the beauty part, is that it doesn't cost you anything to rethink these kind of diet habits. So obviously you're an incredible voice for plant-based diets. What was your academic journey in discovering the benefits? Like, what was the beginning where you said, hey, there's something going on here?
Yeah. And I have to say, everything that I'm going to say is exactly the opposite of how I was raised. Because I was raised on a meaty diet. My dad he grew up in the cattle business before he ended up going to medical school. But he grew up in the cattle business. My grandpa, all those people ate all kind of unhealthy foods, or things we know now to be unhealthy. But I have to say, once I was done with my medical training, there was a foundation that had approached I have a nonprofit organization, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And this foundation was interested in looking at other ways of doing research. And their charter was to do diabetes research. And they asked me what kind of research would I do. Now, their motivation was they were getting all these grant applications from people studying rats and studying mice. Like, people would ask for money for a new potential drug or something to see if it would help with diabetes. And I made a suggestion to them that they liked, which was, I said, stop studying rats. Stop studying mice, study human beings, which you can do in ethical ways, and focus on the foods that people are eating. Because if you do that, I will bet you will find the answer to type 2 diabetes and a lot of other issues too. And I gave them my logic for that. And they said, okay, this sounds sensible, but why don't I start doing those trials for them? And I said, okay, let's work together to design some trials and do it. And our first diabetes trial was very small back in the 1990s with Georgetown University. And my rationale was that a completely vegan diet would probably be the best diet for type 2 diabetes. Now, we didn't have a lot of evidence, but we had a hypothesis as to why that would be, which we tested. If you look at countries that eat that way, they have very little diabetes. or in populations that eat that. It turned out to be an extraordinarily powerful diet. So we kept studying it in other populations. We brought in a group of people who were overweight but didn't have diabetes, and found that using this kind of diet, they could lose weight without counting calories, without limiting portions, without exercise. And so at that point, NIH, the National Institutes of Health here in Bethesda, Maryland, took notice of our work. And they said, basically, if you're so smart, let's try this diet in people who happen to have type 2 diabetes now. Let's bring in a lot of them, and let's just put this to the test as a head-to-head test against the best current diabetes diet. And so that's what they funded us to do. And the first findings from that trial were published by the American Diabetes Association in 2006. And what we found is that for people who have had diabetes, if you put them on a conventional diet, which I'm going to refer to as sort of a portion control diet, limit calories to lose weight, limit carbohydrate. Don't avoid carbohydrate, but keep the amount sort of steady throughout the day so that your insulin doses don't have to change. Avoid the bad fats. That's the conventional approach. You're going to have an improvement. And to give you a number, your hemoglobin A1C will drop by about 0.4. That's a good change. That's a change an oral medicine would do. But if you do a completely vegan diet, and now when I say vegan, I should say that you don't have to have a taste for folk music in order to go vegan. You don't have to wear tie-dyed clothes to go vegan. The word vegan doesn't mean you're from the planet Vegas. All it means is that you're not eating animal products. So my grandpa's side of beef is not going to be in your freezer. Okay. But what you're eating is grains and beans and vegetables and fruits and all this stuff that comes from it, like spaghetti marinara or bean burritos or veggie tacos or the cucumber sushi roll at the Japanese restaurant, whatever it is, it's not the animal stuff. You make that change. And you keep oils really low. Just those steps ended up reducing A1C 300% more than the best current diet. In other words, instead of 0.4, the drop was or a little bit better than 1.2 absolute percentage points. We didn't have any oral medication that could do that. This was done with asparagus, basically, just healthy plant-based foods. The people weren't exercising. I mean, actually add exercise too, make it better. But these people were not, we asked them not to exercise any differently because we wanted to just see what the diet alone would do. It was a very powerful effect. And this ended up revolutionizing diabetes research because something happened in that trial that even in my wildest dreams, I didn't expect that. There was a man who came in and he said, Dr. Barnard, I need to be in this study. He said, my grandma had diabetes. My grandpa had diabetes. He said, my father died at 30. He was 31 when he was diagnosed with diabetes himself. He'd had it for 4 years when he came in. His A1C was way out of the range where it should be. It was high. He said, if I don't get this under control, I'm going to go blind. And I mean, you could just see his family members' pictures going through his mind. He says, I'm going to lose a foot. I'm going to lose a leg. I need some help. And I said, well, come into this study. Well, this is research. This is not medical treatment. But he wanted to volunteer for the study. He was assigned to the vegan diet. And, forgive me for this long-winded answer, but I love it. I just got to tell you what occurred to us. He was randomly assigned to the vegan diet. And the first thing he said was, this is the easiest diet I've ever done. And I said, well, wait a minute. People think vegan is hard, He said, no, wait a minute. You should see what a diabetes diet means. It means you sit down with a dietitian who makes a menu for you. And if you normally eat 2,000 calories, she's going to subtract 500. And then say, that's all you get to eat today. And tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And you're hungry every single day. It's 6:30 at night. You think that was my whole dinner? Can't I have the other 500 calories you took away? How long do I have to do this for? You call her up and she'll say, well, you got to do this forever until you reach your ideal body weight. By Wednesday, you're ready to eat the sofa. And then it gets worse. You have to count your carbohydrate grams to not exceed the amount. So every day you're like recording everything you're eating. And he said to me, you don't make me do that at all. A vegan diet just means if I have spaghetti with ground beef sauce on top, take the ground beef sauce off, put a chunky tomato sauce on top, and eat as much of that as you want. If I go to the Mexican restaurant, instead of the meat taco, I have the bean burrito. Hold the cheese. Easy. Instead of a meat chili, I have a bean chili. Anybody can do this. You don't make me count my portions, limit carbs, nothing. It's not part of it. Anyway, 3 months later, his A1C had dropped from 9.5 to 7.1. This was a humongous drop. There's no oral medicine that does anything close to that. He had erectile dysfunction going into this, which is very common in overweight men with cardiovascular disease. Erectile dysfunction cured within the first 2 months. He said, I am now an official believer. And he stuck with it. 14 months later, he had lost almost 60 pounds. His cholesterol was dramatically improved. But what made me take his lab slip into my office and close my office door was the fact that his A1C, his hemoglobin A1C, which is the main index of your diabetes status, it shows your blood sugar control.
Okay.
Had fallen from 9.5, which is very poor control, down to 5.3 on no medicine whatsoever, which means he didn't have diabetes. He didn't even have pre-diabetes. He had an absolutely normal range. And when I was in medical school, I had been taught that once a person has diabetes, they will always have diabetes. In fact, we used to say this to patients with a kind of a stern tone of voice, not to be mean, but to say, this disease is going to kill you. Unless you take really good care of yourself, you will always have diabetes. I need you to measure your blood sugar. I need you to be careful with your diet. You have to take your medicines just as prescribed because you're always going to have this diabetes. Well, here was a man who didn't have diabetes. It was gone. And so the question was, could I tell him he was cured? This is 20 years ago. At this time, this was unheard of. And now we see it all the time because we know which diet to use. But the fact that diabetes could go away made me and many people absolute believers, and frankly, it made us all vegan too, because we thought, we're not getting any younger. I want to put the best gas in my, I want good gas in my Volvo or my BMW or whatever I'm driving. I want the right fuel in my body too. Yeah. So anyway, that was the academic career to answer your question. But since that time, what we've been doing is we have come to understand why this works. At first, we just knew it did work. And then since that time, we figured out what this diet is doing in the body, which is really cool. And I'll have to tell you about that too. But we then found that it has many other really kind of interesting side effects, both for women and men that have made this exciting, empowering, and really the new foundation for those.
So everybody out there who's listening, what he's talking about is a reversal, basically, which was unheard of forever, that you could reverse the diabetes. And we're talking vegan diet, the thing that everybody's scared of. And I'll tell you just right off, it was easy for me, so if I can do it, anybody can.
Well, it was easy for me too, I have to say. And people, I think they view it as peculiar because it's kind of like a political statement or something like that. People view it that way. Mm-hmm. But if you just view it as, I'm not eating the animal part anymore and I'm going to try these other foods, within a week or two, a person's tastes have changed. They prefer it. Anyway, it's easiest diet you ever did.
So vegan means, for everybody that doesn't know, this is no dairy, no animal products whatsoever. But dairy is increasingly scrutinized. And I don't find it too appealing, like big glasses of milk. I grew up on it and now I think, oh God, that's so gross. Why is milk, cheese, and butter so bad for us? And what are the effects on the body when you have too much dairy? Okay.
What is in dairy is not just a sprinkling of calcium, which is what the advertisements say. The number one constituent of a glass of milk, aside from the water, is sugar. Made in the cow's body, it's lactose sugar. That's the number one nutrient. The number two nutrient is fat, mostly saturated fat, the kind that raises your cholesterol. You don't need lactose sugar and you don't need saturated fat. Completely unnecessary. And there is a third thing that you may not be aware of, and that's estrodiol. It's a female hormone. It's made in the cow. Cows make estrodiol anyway, but cows are artificially inseminated. Yes, they've got something wrong. It's an unpleasant thing. That happens in every dairy, every year to every dairy cow. And they are impregnated and they're pregnant for 9 months and they're milked during many of those 9 months. The estradiol in their body goes into your ice cream. And if you feed that to your 8-year-old son or your 7-year-old daughter, you are feeding them with every dairy serving, milk, yogurt, cheese, ice cream, sour cream, all of it. You're feeding them traces of estradiol, female sex hormone that they do not need. So dairy is a highly hyped, marketed product that's a peculiar cultural wrong turn, that we should never have decided that we needed the milk of a cow on our plate. You just don't need it.
This is why the Japanese call us butter stinkers.
Yeah. It's funny. About 20 years ago, I was doing an interview with a Japanese journalist. And she kept, when we were talking about dairy, she kept wrinkling her nose. And I asked her at the end of the interview, I said, you kind of had a reaction. She said, when we were in school, they kept telling us we should drink milk so that we'd be like Americans. But she said, I just hate it. I said, well, congratulations. You don't need it. You're better off without it.
I mean, it's just kind of weird to drink the hormonal soup of another animal and not expect to have some kind of byproduct come from it. Especially when you were talking about zits and stuff, and there's not very much research about it, I think. But, you get all these zits, and I think cut out the dairy and then see what happens.
There's that. And to tell you the truth, I mean, the things that can kill you are zits won't kill you. They just make you want to die. But prostate cancer, back at Harvard University in 1998, a huge study was published that looked at prostate cancer in men. It was strongly linked to dairy intake, which could have been viewed as a research fluke, except that the very same thing was shown in another Harvard study a couple years later. And back, 6 or 8 years ago, there was a good meta-analysis of about 11 trials, research trials, that show very convincing that milk-drinking men have substantially higher risk of prostate cancer. Okay, that's the finding. What's the explanation? The explanation is that dairy is a hormonally active drug, if you will, that's designed to make the calf grow fast. Well, you're not a calf. What grows fast in your body is cancer cells. When you drink a glass of milk, something in your blood called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, goes right up. And that stimulates cancer cells to flourish. That happens in a man's body. It also seems to the best evidence we have for women is not as strong as for men, but it does appear to be associated with breast cancer too. So, take that glass of milk. Its only biological role is to help a calf grow. Even human babies, they drink milk from their mom's breast. Once they're 3 or 4, I mean, like, give it a rest. You don't need milk from any species anymore, let alone that from a cow. This is entirely a cultural wrong turn.
Wow. So next time you're in the dairy section, you're staring at all that milk, just ask yourself, am I a baby cow? And if the answer is no, just move along.
Yes, although you've noticed that the dairy case now is not exactly a dairy case anymore, because there is now soy milk, rice milk, almond milk, hemp milk, oat milk, all these other products. You don't need them either. But they've come in and they're a lot healthier for you to splash on your cornflakes.
That's the
one exception I would say. Soy milk has health benefit. Soy milk is something that actually reduces cancer risk. The urban myth is the opposite, that it'll increase cancer risk. It does the opposite. It actually reduces cancer risk.
That's right. I think it was one of my questions is about what you were talking about, soybeans, and you'd say pop them in the oven and dry, and they're a great snack, but they're also the misconceptions about soy is that, it's full of estrogen, it'll make me grow boobs and I'll become a woman.
Okay. First of all, so that kind of urban mythology has circulated around. But a couple things happen. The first is, researchers have looked at what happens for, say, women who eat the most soy. I'm talking about, say, an Asian American. Her mother or father, Japanese, she grew up in LA, but she's got the taste for tofu and soy milk, and she's eaten a lot of it. You compare her to her neighbor who never had soy at all. The risk of cancer for women consuming the most soy is about 30% lower than for women who avoid soy. Let me make sure I say that clearly, because I want everybody to understand. Soy reduces cancer risk. Women consuming the most soy have about 30% less risk of ever developing cancer. If you have had breast cancer, they found it on a mammogram, you had a lumpectomy, you had whatever treatments there are, and now you're going to think, what do I eat now? Women who now eat the most soy have about a 25% reduced likelihood of that cancer coming back in time. Soy reduces the risk of cancer, and it reduces the risk of dying of cancer. The reason I'm trying to say that emphatically is that the urban myths, for some reason, just keep circulating. And even well-meaning but ill-informed oncologists will say to a woman after cancer surgery, let's see, I read in a magazine you shouldn't have tofu. If you say that to her, you just condemn her to the highest mortality group. You don't have to have soy, but soy reduces cancer deaths. So, and about Manboobs, by the way. You're in the locker room. Manboobs, that's the guide for breast enhancement. And so one guy will say to another, I saw on the internet that's from soy. You can disprove that any sunny afternoon. Go to the beach on a hot day, and you see a kind of a chunky guy pulling his t-shirt off, and he's got sort of enhanced breast tissue. He's a big guy. Go right up to him and ask him, how much tofu have you eaten this week? I promise you, he will look at you and say, tofu? I never tasted tofu. I don't eat stuff. I eat chicken wings. I'm a normal cheeseburger kind of guy. I love pizza. That's what I eat. He's never had soy in his life. And this is, or not much of it. That's not his thing. The reason he got, and he's got breast enhancement. The reason that started is that fat cells make estrogen. If you have body fat, everybody's got a little body fat. A body fat cell is not just a lump of calories. A fat cell is a factory. It's a living, breathing part of your body. And if you're a man and you've been getting a lot of cheese and chicken wings and burgers in your diet, and you've gained a little bit of weight, your fat cell mass is bigger. And into every one of those cells, your testosterone will go in that cell. Walk along with your testosterone and see what happens to it. Enzymes inside that fat cell grab your testosterone. They chemically change it into estrodiol, the female sex hormone, and send it out into your circulation. Yes, you are feminizing yourself from your own body fat. What is the answer? Suck it up and go vegan. Because once you eat like a bull is not eating Velveeta or chicken wings. Eat like a bull. Eat like a stallion. They are vegan animals. That's right. So is an elephant. And when you eat that, your body fat starts to disappear. Your testosterone level starts to get back where it should. That erectile dysfunction you didn't want to tell your doctor about goes away, and your man boobs will resolve. Okay? The reason you got man boobs is because of your increased body fat, which came from an omnivorous diet.
That's incredible. So your boobs are full of cheeseburgers, people. Go vegan. Yeah. But it's funny how these kind of myths stick around about soy being bad or whatever. And you have to do good research and you have to show the truth. But once you know the truth, you also have to find a way to get the word out, because it's unfortunate that mythology can sort of evolve. There are certain corporate interests that taint science sometimes, and meat lobbies and things like this. They're out there. They're working. So fats and oils are always something to be considered. Obviously, like, what is there? Good fats and bad fats. Which ones are necessary and in what amount? What are we talking about here?
You do need a little bit of fat, and this will not be on the test, but their names are alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid. If you're a medical student, that will be on the test, but for everybody else, no. So alpha-linolenic acid is in plants, and so is linoleic acid, and there is tons of them in plants is all you need. If you look this up in a science text, they will say you just need a few % of your calories as those fats. You'll be fine. Here is the problem. You get a lot of fat that we don't need. Cheese is 70% fat, and most of that is nothing like alpha-linolenic acid or linoleic acid. It's mostly saturated fat, the kind that clogs your heart. And so that squeezes the good fats out of the diet. And you're actually going to be kind of deficient in good fats because you've got so much of the bad fat that's just pushing it out. So the best answer is, it's going to sound a little funny. Let's say you're eating vegetables. Take that sprig of broccoli, that leaf of spinach, a little bit of kale, the asparagus, whatever the vegetable is, send it to a lab. And they'll say, you thought there was no fat in here? Well, about 7 or 8% of its calories are from fat. And the amount that's good fat, the alpha-linolenic acid, is proportionately really high. That's what nature thought you were going to be eating. So if you have the healthy vegetables and beans and grains and fruits in your diet, you're going to get the traces of fat that you need. You don't need to have either animal fats, nor do you need a lot of cooking fat. So French fries with ketchup and salt, very tasty, but you don't need all that fat that's dripping out of them. And so I'm sorry to tell you that added fats in fried foods and baked foods are adding a lot of unnecessary stuff that we don't.
So it becomes a toleration. I remember I was talking to these other physicians, and they said, that's the pleasure trap where it's food becomes addictive at some point, salt and oil and stuff. Is that true?
Absolutely. Researchers have tested this. In fact, there's a drug called naloxone or Narcan that you've heard of, that's used to knock out opiate overdose. And it's sold in these first aid kit kind of things nowadays. You can use that as a research tool. You give it to somebody who is addicted to certain kinds of foods. You could be a chocolate addict. This is real. And your viewers know who they are. You come into the laboratory, and I start an IV and I put some Narcan into your veins, and then I give you some chocolate. And what I discover is you eat noticeably less of it. And by the way, this is not a treatment. This is a research tool that proves that what chocolate is doing is not just to your tongue; it's to your brain. Chocolate stimulates the mu receptors of the brain. So do certain compounds in cheese, which is what makes them addicting. And you can block those with this drug. And again, this is not a treatment. This just shows us that foods that are addictive, it's not just taste and mouthfeel. It's something that happens in your brain that you crave. With coffee, you may think coffee tastes great, and it may taste great. But the reason you crave it is because of what caffeine's doing in your brain, and all that sensory stuff is secondary. That comes into it later.
Wow, that's why I get the placebo effect just by smelling coffee. I go, oh man, I'm awake.
And you might like a strawberry, but nobody ever binged on strawberries. No, there was never an airport line of 30 people waiting for their morning strawberries. That doesn't happen. And you might like a banana or all these foods. The things that your body really needs tend not to be addictive. Addicting is when you're getting something that nature wasn't really thinking about. That just happens to knock these little brain receptors into high gear. And once we figure out what that is, whether it's cocaine or heroin or caffeine or tobacco or you name it, then that becomes a product that's got a lot of value on the market.
To a certain extent, I see anything that's not on a commercial, like when's the last time you've seen a commercial for carrots? Carrots, have some carrots today. I'll take that, that's the ones you should be eating.
Well, it's like, cigarette smoke. You want that smoke. What you really need to inhale is oxygen. And people don't think about it. You don't have to worry about the homeostasis of your oxygen balance. It's everywhere. And it doesn't have any particular taste or odor. Your body functions on oxygen. And all the healthy foods are kind of as secret and innocuous as that. It's the quiet vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans. But that big hunk of steak, that big hunk of cheese, or that big glob of chocolate, or a mixed drink, all of these are things that are doing things that nature didn't really have in mind, and which is the reason that we get seduced by them.
That's a shame. The diet of kings has warped us all.
Well, there are also the diseases of kings, too. That's important to remember.
Yeah. So, look, people, if they want to go vegan, what are some misconceptions about what could happen to you? What kind of precautions should you take? Obviously, B12 is something that we talk about a lot. What are some things that people should keep in mind, and what are some falsehoods about it?
Okay. Well, first of all, just going vegan is a good step, and your nutrition is going to improve. People think, gee, if I go vegan, am I going to be nutritionally deficient? You are nutritionally deficient now as an omnivore, because when you eat a steak, yes, it's got a lot of protein, it's got a lot of iron, but it has no fiber at all. And that's the reason these people end up having to be at the CVS, buying fiber supplements, because they're deficient in fiber. There is not a drop of complex carbohydrate in there, which is why your energy is no good. There's a lot of cholesterol and saturated fat. There's zero vitamin C, which is why people who are on meat-based diets tend to be deficient in a whole range of things. Because the vegetables and the fruits that bring you the healthy vitamins and minerals are gone from your diet. When a person goes vegan and brings those things in, your diet is much more nutritious. But even so, you do want to plan. So the rules are really simple. 4 groups. Have them every day. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, or the bean group, beans, peas, lentils. Really simple. Those are your raw materials. And you can interpret that any way you want. You can go, let's go to a Mexican restaurant. The grain now is corn, I guess. So my corn tortilla or my flour tortilla. I got my beans in there. I got vegetables. I got fruits, whether that's the orange for dessert or tomato is a fruit too. So the chunky tomatoes in my salsa, that counts. Okay. No, I'm going to go Mediterranean. So now my grain is wheat. It's pasta. Fine. So I'm not topping it with meat. I'm topping it with tomato sauce or the pesto sauce. Wow. Out of this world. I can have fruits. I can have now chickpeas. So I'm not having black beans or pinto beans. I'm in southern Italy. So it's now the chickpea. But you get the same things. You get a grain. You get the fruits. You get your legume. Okay. No, I'm going to Asia. Now it's not corn. It's not wheat. My grain now is rice. Fine. What's my bean? Is it black beans, chickpeas? No. Now it's the soybean and all the things that soybean fruit. Anyway, every culture has their fruits, their grains, their favorite bean, all their things. And you turn that into whatever culinary jewel you want to make. Fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes. That's your painting box. Do add vitamin B12 to it, which if you're a kid and you're having Flintstones vitamins, well, there's B12 there, plenty. If you're an adult, your one-a-day vitamin has it too, but to tell you the truth, just the B12 alone, you'll see it in any drugstore, any health food store. Take the smallest B12 they sell and you're fine. That's the end of the rules. You've now got great nutrition. For extra credit, people do other things where they refine it and they'll buy organic and da-da-da-da-da. But if you're just having those 4 food groups and you're having a B12 supplement, you are miles ahead of everybody else you grew up with.
And you could throw probiotics in the mix, I'm guessing.
If you want to, but I wouldn't. I have to say, I don't think you need to. I don't think you even should. And now this is going to surprise you. Probiotics are bacteria marketed for a good reason because you have bacteria in your gut. And those bacteria are active. They're trying to help you by making good things. And when people are eating Velveeta and Spam, those things cause the bad bacteria to flourish. However, here's what really counts. The little bit of probiotic, a little bit of bacteria in a capsule, or that were thrown into your yogurt at the factory, it's minuscule compared to the amount of bacteria actually in your gut. What really matters is everything else you're eating, because the other things that are in your gut are the soil that the bacteria will grow. So if you're eating a healthy, high fiber diet, healthy bacteria will grow. Think of it this way. You're growing some roses in your garden. And after like 3 months, you go to the garden store and you say, the roses will not grow. They just don't grow. What kind of soil are you using? Well, I'm using this soil here. And the gardener looks at it and says, this is cactus soil. It's all full of sand and stuff. The roses are never going to grow in that. Here's rose soil. Put this in. Okay. Change my flower bed. Put in the soil that the rose seeds will grow in. They grow beautifully. Okay. In your digestive tract, you're not growing roses. What you are growing is bacteria. Healthy bacteria, the ones that are going to treat you next. But they do not do well if you give them cactus soil. That means steak, pork chops, chicken wings, animal products. They do not do well. If you're eating animal muscle tissue, which is what it is, your healthy bacteria don't grow very well. So get that out. What they want basically the foods that all primates eat. Yes, human beings are primates. We are not honorary dogs and cats. Primates eat a huge amount of plant foods, and that plant fiber sustains healthy digestive tract.
Some of us are more primate than others.
Well, yes, but we can learn from our primate friends. You know, a lot of people who think, well, the paleo diet, all this kind of nonsense, they imagine that we're an honorary meat eater. We are cousins of chimpanzees and gorillas, orangutans, and bonobos. They are not eating ice cream. So all those animals are either primarily or exclusively vegan. And the more that we eat that way, the better we do. Now, some people try to be an honorary pussycat. And so that, your cat thrives on meat or fish. You do not. They don't get colorectal cancer. They're going to be, they're not going to get a myocardial infarction. You will. So anyway, you get the idea.
Animals are all different, and we need to be eating what's good for us. And humans are the only animal in the animal kingdom that are obese stereotypically.
Yeah, although you can make animals obese by breeding them, breeding cats and breeding dogs in ways that are not natural for them, and then feeding them really not so good commercial things. That, the more we lure these unfortunate animals into our way of thinking.
Yeah, right. That's the thing.
They don't do so well. And the reverse happens too when, I'm not encouraging this, but if you go to areas where the dogs get stray and they end up kind of forming their own pack in rural Mexico or on the streets of India or something like that, I'm not suggesting that animals should be stray because they live a rough life. Yeah. But when they get their genetic interbreeding, when they get the poodle genes out of them, and they become more of a street dog, they're healthier. And if they could get healthy food and some good love and care, they'd be a lot healthier than when they were these goofy purebreds that people have to.
Yeah. This is, again, another foolish touch that the humans have made. All domesticated animals are now kind of on our sides, eating cheeseburgers, and on this show, we really like animals. I'm just saying, we like the animals here. So
as indeed we should. The nicest thing we could do is leave them off our plate. When I was a kid growing up in North Dakota, I drove animals to slaughter myself. I hunted. I had a 20 gauge shotgun that brought down geese and ducks from the sky. And when you grow up and you learn to leave those poor gentle souls to their own devices and realize there's plenty of other things for me to eat down here on terra firma, you can be compassionate and healthy at the same time.
North Dakota, this is farmland. This is like very outdoorsy. Did your parents, when did you start having that compassion for animals, and did they give you a hard time about it?
No, they didn't give me a hard time. But I have to say they're a bit resistant. My mother had not in a bad way really, but my mother had a really high cholesterol, and she wouldn't do anything about it. I'm an old fashioned girl, I don't feel a need to take medicine and stuff like that. I said, Mom, a high cholesterol level can kill you. I don't know. And I've written 20 books. I would give my mother a book. I'd say, just read what I said to lots of other people, Mom. If you apply this to your life, this might help you. And then I'd come home 6 months later. How you could see that a book hasn't been opened, Finally, what happened? Say, like, Mom, I've been funded by NIH. Mom, I've got 4 PBS specials. Why is it that my own mother doesn't listen to me? What happened? I got to tell you, my mother went to see her own physician, and her doctor said, Mrs. Barnard, you've got a dangerously high cholesterol level. I'm going to put you on a statin. What's a statin? A statin is a cholesterol lowering drug. How long do I have to take it for? You've got to take it forever, for the rest of your life. My mother didn't like it. She went home. She called me up and she said, this doctor told me I need to take this statin drug for the rest of my life. I said, Mother, I've been telling you about this. The diet is the big driver. I don't know. Anyway, my mother doesn't say another word. Without telling me, she picks up a book I read. She went vegan. Completely vegan. No animal products at all. 7 weeks later, she went back to see the doctor. The doctor checks her cholesterol level. She goes home waiting for the results. The doctor's office calls the next day. They said, you've got to come back. You've got to come back in the clinic. We've got a problem. What's the problem? The problem is there's something wrong with our laboratory. It says your cholesterol level dropped 80 points. And we know that that's physiologically impossible. So could you please come back here and we'll get it checked and we'll see what your cholesterol really is. And then we'll start your medication. She hung up the phone. She said, damn, cholesterol dropped 80 points. My mother called me up and she said, Neal, why didn't you tell me about this before? So, anyhow, my mom's got religion. She said, okay, this vegan diet, this saves you from needing medication. This is amazing. This controls your cholesterol. So my father, he'd never been in a kitchen in his life. He's the generation where, like the kitchen's down there somewhere. His job is to be a filter feeder. You sit at the dining room table, the food comes. Yeah. And then when you're done, the plates go. So I ended up with 2 vegan parents, but only one of them actually knew it because, she was the one who made the food.
Ah,
And she fed him what she ate.
What kind of stuff?
Well, at first it was really kind of awkward. She heard that you need soybeans for protein. So poor woman. She would buy these soybeans and soak them and boil them and mix them with tomato sauce and put them in a bowl. And it was really the saddest thing. She ended up learning that it's just normal foods. If you're having spaghetti, just have the spaghetti with the tomato sauce. It can be straight out of the jar. As long as it's the tomato sauce, you're fine. Or if she went to the Taco Bell, get the bean burrito, just hold the cheese. Simple stuff. So she eventually got with it, and she realized it didn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
But there's 5 kids in my litter, myself and my 4 siblings. And so the other siblings then started realizing that when we'd all get together for family get-togethers, it was going to be vegan out of respect for our mom. And so Christmas was renamed the Vegan Decemberfest. And that was everyone getting together in Fargo to bring their vegan stuff for my dear mother.
Oh man, that is the sweetest story possible. And you touched on the protein deficiency. Everybody's talking about, it's a protein deficiency. You'll die surely, so you need to eat, massive quantities of beans but that's not really true.
No, you're going to get plenty of protein. But my rules again: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans. You eat that. The essential amino acids that produce the protein are in those foods in more than adequate quantity to meet your needs. Not to worry. Now, let's say you're a little bit old and you think, gee, I have to have a little bit more protein now that I'm 70 years old, whatever. Okay, fine. Well, focus on the bean group. Make sure you got the beans or the bean products. Soybeans turn into tofu and tempeh and veggie bacon. Fine. Those are really high protein foods. They're delicious.
I'm hungry now.
Have them every day. And you're going to, anyway, so you do need protein, but plants have protein. I mean, that's an elephant, a giraffe. Those are vegan animals. Where are they getting their protein? They're getting it from plants. So, you will too.
I hear it too often. Oh, I'll surely die if I go vegan. Come on, folks, give it a try before you say it. And one more thing I want to ask you about the keto diet. Obviously, everybody's going nuts about this. Why are they going so crazy about something that seems so unhealthy?
It's funny how people imagine that eating fruits and vegetables, grains and beans is going to be hard. And they end up doing something that really is. 50-60% of what you eat is carbohydrate. And if on a keto diet, they take all that away. So you're not having any grains, no more spaghetti, no more bread, no more potatoes, no more rice, no more cookies, no more cakes, all that stuff. But you somehow feel like you're doing something. And because you've taken away more than half of what you would eat, you're going to lose weight. Over time, what happens is that you get sick of it and you've been damaging your body in that interim with these high cholesterol, high fat foods. So we don't use ketogenic diets at all for anybody. And what we strongly encourage people to do is, after they've gotten sick of having done that for the 3rd or 4th time, try to go to a completely plant-based diet. The problem with the keto, or one of the bigger problems with the keto approach, is that it makes people memorize a lie, which is that carbs are bad. And they get this in their head, and so they're afraid to eat brown rice. Carbohydrate is sugar molecules joined together in a chain. Those sugar molecules, that glucose is what powers your brain. Glucose powers your muscles. Glucose is what allows you to complete a marathon. Glucose is a good thing when it's packed into healthy foods. And the ketogenic diet says, no, that's poison. You need Spam and pork chops and heavy cream. And it's an unfortunate thing that's just kind of unsuspecting people have bought into. But you could sell all kinds of goofy stuff to people, and it's unfortunate. But it's not their own fault. People are desperate. They've tried all kinds of diets, and kind of in some ways, the more demanding something is, the more people are likely to do it. But say just stop. Yeah. Go back to these simple, healthy, natural foods that love you back, and you're going to be healthier.
Yeah. People need to find out that you are addicted, and you need to just kind of ease back off all that stuff. And no, you can't eat whipped cream and steak and expect to actually be healthy. I don't know. It seems crazy to me, but it's very popular, and it makes me sad.
But it's easy to make a transition. And the transition is really simple. here, we have a medical center here called Barnard Medical Center. And in fact, people hear of it because they come here via telemedicine nowadays. But anyway, somebody comes in, they got diabetes and they need to go on a low fat vegan diet, but that sounds like a tall order. So what we do always is we say, we're going to do this in 3 weeks. But we're going to precede it by 7 days of just getting ready. Here's what you do. Easiest thing in the world. The dietitian sits down with Hank and Hank's reluctant spouse who says, I guess I'll do this with you if I have to. And what you decide is the doctor said no animal products. What's the day going to look like? And Hank thinks, gee, what can I eat for breakfast? Okay. I guess I could have oatmeal. Okay. But do you like it? Well, yeah, I like it if it's got cinnamon and blueberries and sliced bananas on top. Fine. Or some days I just have cornflakes, but I have them with milk. Have you tried almond milk? No. Is it any good? I don't know. You got 7 days. Try it. So their job for the next 7 days is just to prepare, just to find things they like that happen to be vegan. So, they go to a fast food place and the fast food place has a veggie burger they've never tasted. You got 7 days. Try it. Or they go to their favorite Italian restaurant. They've got vegan dishes there too. You got 7 days. Try them. Veggie sausage. Your cousin has always been telling you about the veggie sausage they like. You never tried it. You got 7 days. Try it. So 7 days go by and they come back to the clinic and they're talking to the dietitian and said, how did it go? They've got a huge list. Breakfasts, lunches, dinners, all vegan, things that work for them. Fine. You're now ready. Let's do 3 weeks. Let's do it vegan. No animal products. But that's really, really easy now because it's only 3 weeks. And also, you've already made your list of everything that you like, and you've, in fact, stocked up, and you know you're set. So the person says, I'll do this. And they go vegan for 3 weeks. At the end of that time, 2 things happen. Physically, they see changes. Their weight's coming down. If they got diabetes, their blood sugar is coming down. Their insulin requirements are going way down. But their tastes are changing. They haven't had chicken wings in 3 weeks. They don't care. They don't want it anymore. And they think, I'm feeling more energy. My digestion's good. Let's do it another week. You always maintain that short-term focus. And you do it strictly at the beginning. You don't have a little chicken wings here and there because that just reignites the addiction. Just set it aside. And that's what allows that kind of bad love affair to just pass away. And that's it. And we do that with every patient who comes in here. And I've never seen anybody unable to do it. It's way easier than quitting smoking or way easier than a keto diet or something like that.
There's no alternative to smoking cigarettes other than, just quit
or gum or something. Yeah.
Stuff like this. But then when you go from conventional food to vegan food, and there's pictures out there, you can look up delicious vegan dishes on Google Images, and you will be converted quite easily once you see that, hey, we still have a lot of fun with fruits, vegetables. You can eat spicy, you can do all that stuff. So,
when I grew up in Fargo, it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn. Except for special occasions, it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas. But now I live in Washington D.C. I can go downstairs. There's an Italian restaurant that'll make me angel hair pasta with an arrabbiata sauce. That's the Italian word for angry, spicy. Next to it is a sushi bar where they've got vegan cucumber roll, asparagus roll, sweet potato roll. Oh, down the street, there's an Indian place. It's got a whole menu of vegan things. Anyway, the point is that what I eat now is more varied than what I was eating as a kid growing up in Fargo. So, there's plenty.
You're making me hungry, Doctor. Doggone it. Well, you're going to come back and we're going to rap again about medical mumbo jumbo and try to get people to do a vegan diet, plant-based diet. I always tell people at the end of these, I say, it's good for the animals, it's good for your health, and it's also good for the environment. So give it a shot. Doctor approved.
There's one thing that's even, I think, more compelling to many people than all those things.
Tell me.
It's good for the people you love. So if you are a 50-year-old guy, or 48-year-old woman, whatever, you want to save animals, you want to save the environment, you want to save your coronary arteries. But if you look at your children, look at your spouse, you look at the other people around you, if you have something that can help them to tackle a health problem, to live a little bit longer, to get off the medicines they don't really want to take, you hold in your hands a huge gift of knowledge that you don't want to keep to yourself.
Wow. Dr. Neal Barnard, wonderful human being, MD.
Thank you. There's lots more information at our website, pcrm.org. My most recent book is called Your Body in Balance. It's all about how foods affect hormones, something we didn't talk about too much today, but there's a lot there too. So I hope people jump in, get surprised, get motivated, give it a try.
Yeah. And we'll have you again next time because there's so much to talk about. The links are in the description, people, if you want to check out his books. If you go to his website, if you lose faith, maybe get in contact with a doctor and he'll set you straight. We'll see. All right. Well, let's say goodbye to everybody in TV land. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thank you so much.